by Bob Friesen, a longtime Canadian farm leader and the Vice President of Government Affairs and project spokesperson with Farmers of North America. And that project that you're working on right now, Bob, talking to farmers across Western Canada, we've heard FNA is looking at getting into the grain business, working with farmers. Maybe expand on that, first of all, just to put this all in context, what FNA is trying to do right now.
Well, let me start by saying that Project N, the farmer-owned fertilizer manufacturing project, is still going full steam ahead. But as we were developing the sales and distribution strategy for fertilizer, we began to realize more and more that there were significant synergies between fertilizer distribution and grain handling. And so we started talking about how we could add grain handling facilities to fertilizer distribution, because it makes a lot of sense. It's a much more efficient use of farmers' capital if we have grain handling and fertilizer distribution on the same site, rather than have farmers pay for fertilizer distribution centers over here and also pay for someone else's grain handling facility over here. And so we decided to put them together, and so we decided to launch a new farmer-owned grain company called Genesis Grain and Fertilizer, because we want to build a company together with farmers that will do the grain handling and marketing for those farmers. Because farmers now are getting frustrated with the grain handling and marketing margins that they have to pay every year, pushing $40 a ton, as well as farmers are really frustrated with the way grain companies held them to ransom over the inventory over the last year and made excess margins because of that. And so that's why we believe this project is very timely. The only way it isn't timely is the timelines that were not of our own doing, and we now have to bug farmers when it's the worst time of the year for farmers, because they're focused on harvest. But we really felt we needed to get this in front of farmers as quickly as we possibly could.
And you're facing a tight timeline because a big part of this proposal includes the acquisition of the former Canadian Wheat Board, the CWB, and its assets. And from what I understand, there's some dates attached to when that has to happen by.
Well, I can't comment on that. What I can comment on, however, is that we believe that it's urgent that farmers look at a farmer-owned grain company, a farmer-owned grain handling and marketing company, and it's extremely important that farmers look at this, because we know the costs that they're currently paying for grain handling and marketing. But I can also tell you that in building this farmer-owned grain company, we will be looking at greenfield options as well as existing assets that may be available.
So can you explain then why you have this tight time frame? Why you're trying to talk to farmers now at fall?
No, I can't comment on that.
Okay. Do you know whether there is a date by when offers have to be made for the Wheat Board, as there is some talk about an expedited timeline for privatization? I
can't comment on that either. I'm under fairly strict confidentiality obligations, and I just can't comment on that.
Okay. Does it make sense for farmers to purchase CWB with the debt that they've been accumulating, possibly, or the expenditures they've had with all these announced elevators over the last couple of weeks?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I can't really comment on that either. I mean, you're right. The CWB has made different announcements. But let me go back again to saying that it's similar to the fertilizer project that we started. We tell farmers that, look, you're going to be paying for someone's plant, fertilizer manufacturing plant. Do you want to pay for your own, or do you want to pay for someone else's? The same holds true for grain handling. Do farmers want to pay for someone else's grain handling facilities, pay for someone else's grain company, or would they rather pay for their own grain company, but not only just pay for their own grain company, build a grain company, and then also be able to accrue some of the grain handling and marketing margins, as well as mitigating the excess revenues that grain companies were taking over the last year. We know that grain companies were holding farmers to ransom over the high inventories, and that's something that would be mitigated if farmers owned their own grain company.
Have you been in conversation with CWB or people tied to its privatization?
I can't comment on that either.
Okay, so you don't know whether, or you can't explain why why you're making this pitch to farmers before the start of 2015?
I can't comment on that either. Look, we are telling farmers that this is the worst time of the year. The matter is urgent. We really need to deal with this. This is why we're, as I said, we're trying to get farmers' attention during the worst time of the year for them. They're supposed to be focused on harvest, but again, we're trying to get their attention because we believe there is a great opportunity for farmers to really start a strong, viable grain company, and that's why we're talking to them.
Do you feel that your inability to answer some of these questions is hampering or is an obstacle in trying to raise funds for this project?
Well, you know, we're trying to go to farmers with as much information as we possibly can, and so we are doing that in farmer meetings. We are talking to farmers about the opportunities that are there with regard to existing assets that might be available. We are talking to them about how we think that a farmer-owned grain company could accrue some of the grain handling and marketing margins back to them. We are talking to them about how it's important that we build on the synergies of fertilizer distribution and that it's a more efficient use of farmers' capital if they build grain handling and fertilizer distribution facilities together. We are talking to them about, something in the future. If they're delivering through any other grain company, any other marketing agency in Canada, they will be paying for that company. They will be paying for the costs of those marketing agencies. And we're saying, why do that? Why not rather build a farmer-owned grain company, looking at existing facilities that might be available, and then accruing those margins back to farmers?
And most farmers remember dealing with the pools. How is this idea of a farmer-run grain marketer different from the pool concept, or have we made the cycle back to that type of market?
Well, you know, we're not trying to resurrect any of the pools. We are using a different model for this farmer-owned grain company, where we are looking to have farmers join a limited partnership. They invest in the company, and then they accrue the profits from the farmer-owned grain company as investors. And so we believe that it's going to be good for competition. We are targeting, with this farmer-owned grain company, we're targeting 20% of the market, which in 2012 was 33 million ton. We're targeting 20% of that market. And in fact, if in this farmer-owned grain company we can get, say, 3,000 farmers to commit to deferred delivery contracts, and on average would commit 1,000 ton a year, we know that that's enough volume that would make this project successful. Having said that, we are targeting 20% of 33 million ton, so somewhere between 5 and 7 million ton. And we believe that farmer loyalty is going to make those delivery commitments happen, and we believe that's a great footing. And using existing assets that might be available would be a great springboard to make this project successful.
What happens if we see an international grain company that doesn't have a presence here in Western Canada come and buy CWB? Does this Genesis Grain and Fertilizer still go ahead?
Well, the first part of that question you need to ask farmers. We are determined to build a grain handling company simply because of the synergies between grain handling and fertilizer distribution. It just makes a lot of sense to build the two together. Again, it's a much more efficient use of farmers' capital. And just like we're doing in Project N, we want farmers to have a piece of the action at every step of the production and marketing process. We would like the same thing for a grain handling company, so that farmers owning a grain handling company will own that part of the value chain and will be able to accrue the benefits from owning that part of the value chain. You know, we've often heard over the years how both levels of government have always said, to make farmers successful in the industry, we need more value add in the industry. But you know, it's clear that for farmers to really benefit from value added, they have to own part of that value add, and that's why at FNA we're now creating the second generation of the FNA concept. At the beginning when FNA started, of course, FNA is a National Farmers Business Alliance. that negotiates for lower input prices for our farmer members. The second generation part of that is we are now creating projects where we are giving farmers the opportunity to invest in the value chain, and we believe that that just strengthens farmers' future in that they can own part of the value chain and accrue those benefits.
So you're aiming to raise, is it $380 million?
The offering memorandum, when it comes out, is going to provide a minimum amount that we need, depending on where some of our plans fall out, how they end up, and it also calls for a maximum amount of money that we believe we need to build this company in a way that we can hit the ground running with it.
So the maximum would be that $380 million?
I can't really talk about specific numbers there, but all I can say is we have a minimum and we have a maximum, and like I say, we need the minimum to start working on fertilizer distribution centers, and the maximum, of course, would entail looking at other greenfield projects, as well as looking at assets that might be available currently.
And I guess, judging by the timeline, the reason you're holding these meetings now, we can expect things to either come together or fall apart in the next couple months?
Well, I can tell you that we've set some pretty urgent timelines for ourselves, and farmers have asked us the question, well, why didn't you wait till January when we had time to look at all the information that you're giving us? And so they have asked the question why we didn't wait till January. All I can comment on that is we are working under some very tight timelines.